Check out my Redfall video on the main channel. Anyway, let's just jump straight into it. I feel in the spicy mood today, in an electric mood. I feel energized, okay? We're about to pump right through this. We're barely gonna do an intro, okay? So basically, there's this video that I came across called A Good Game But a Bad Redacted Game, right? It's pretty simple. Obviously, I was drawn to it because I've heard this argument time and time again that, you know, DmC Devil May Cry is a good game but a bad DmC game, or Splinter Cell Conviction, a good game but a bad Splinter Cell game. So I've heard this argument a lot, and it's something that obviously piqued my interest. So let me say, before I go any further, this is a good video, okay? I'm not gonna say that this is a bad video. However, but we're not going to talk about those, because what he does there is actually pretty good. What we are, slur, question mark? We are going to be talking about the bad part. Now, he brings up 3 examples: DmC Devil May Cry, Splinter Cell Conviction, and then Hitman. I haven't played a single thing of Hitman because I actually, you know, have touched grass. Okay, that's probably a bit too mean. But holy ding-dongers, his take on Splinter Cell Conviction and DmC Devil May Cry is kind of out there. So let's get the first thing out of the way. Popular opinion does not make a good or bad game. He brings up these examples mostly because it doesn't seem like he's played a lot of them. He just knows of them or has played them casually and doesn't really want to dive into it. So the reason why he brings up Splinter Cell Conviction, DmC Devil May Cry, and Hitman Blood, or whatever it's called, I don't know, I don't remember, IDK, man. He draws conclusions to them because most people think that DmC Devil May Cry is bad, or that Splinter Cell Conviction is bad, or they're bad interpretations of the previous source material. And let me just say, I've already said this, but I'll say it again, popular opinion does not make the game good or bad, okay? We've had popular opinion on games that just doesn't make sense. Example, alright? Let's talk about the gadget switching in Arkham City and Arkham Knight. So in Arkham City, in order to spin the gadgets or choose differently from the gadgets, you have to use the D-pad. Up would be like your zip recruiter and the line launcher, and you know, it's basically to help you do it in real time. Sure, you have to move your thumb all the way down, oh the nightmare, to the D-pad in order to switch to it, but you know, I've got an Xbox Elite controller. I'm just saying. The point is that Arkham City's effective use of gadgets is good. Knights, on the other hand, takes this whole other idea, because instead of putting this stuff on the D-pad like they should, they decide to go with this bonkers idea, which is just to make a wheel. So I hate like wheels in video games just in general. I think that they're awful, and if you're going to give me the D-pad over the circles, I'm going to take the D-pad every single time. I get it, not everything is super great, you know, in terms of switching abilities, and sometimes you get a lot of gadgets, but I absolutely hate this decision, because all the other D-pads are like for the worst methods ever. It's like, oh, you can switch to your side quest, oh, you can switch to that, but like, that's what a menu's for. Or just use the other, where the taunt button is in DmC, you know, use that button, the left pause button, you know what I'm talking about. You can just use that. So why does it take up the D-pad? Yet, I've heard like little to no complaints about any of that. It's a very popular game, and it's a very popular decision, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good decision. So let's jump into the 2 specifics. Let's start off with Splinter Cell Convictions. Now, one of the points that he makes is that it went back to basics, guys. You know, they had a little steering off, but guys, they went back to basics. My ass, alright? I bet you 5,000 femboy asses, okay, that this game was very much inspired by Conviction. In fact, they have a whole system basically dedicated to how Conviction works in that game. It did not go back to basics. It has an option if you want to, but that affects other things as well. Splinter Cell Conviction is basically the shoot first, ask questions later. It relies on you to memorize the map in a very different way that allows you to do the most stylish kills. And then, when it comes to the OG Splinter Cell games, they were way more methodical by chance. They were way different in terms of how they acted. So Splinter Cell Blacklist is like, what if we did both? And because of that, it ends up in this identity crisis where the game doesn't really want you to be one thing or the other. See, sometimes the game is designed to do specific things. Like, for instance, there's side quests with Grimm, Charlie, and Coben. Each one have a different type of system that they're using. And for those are good because they understand what the gameplay they can use for it is. The problem, and here's the big problem, is that some of the maps and designs for the main missions go contrary to what you actually want to do. Like sometimes it'll just force you to do run and gun when you don't want to. Sometimes it'll force you to do major stealth when you don't want to. Sometimes it'll make you do things and like give you a ton of options, but none of the options feel in depth or make the Blacklist feel any different. So popular pro opinion is pretty against this game. In fact, I've seen some people saying that there's no good Splinter Cell Conviction game after Splinter Cell Double Agent. So going back to basics just doesn't make any sense. On top of that, because we're not done yet, my guy, you see, funny thing. You want to know something silly? Some real spicy shit? Funny thing is that the director of Splinter Cell Conviction? Yeah, let's go with that. Is the exact same guy that directed Splinter Cell Blacklist. Crazy, ain't it? It doesn't make sense, huh? So going back to basics just doesn't make any form of sense. It's kind of like that with certain options, but the game isn't built around that. And then we have the other thing. If we're truly going back to basics, why is Sam Fisher completely different? So if you don't know, while Conviction had its serious moments of Sam Fisher, it was still very clear that Sam Fisher was still Sam Fisher. He was still making some occasional quirky one-liners, especially in the gameplay where you did certain moves and he would say a lot of quippy lines, like the older games. However, when we get to Blacklist, he is just completely different. And the actor isn't the problem. It's not his problem that he's making Sam Fisher a more grounded approach or that there's a new actor playing him. That's not the issue at all. The issue is that Sam Fisher in Splinter Cell Blacklist just doesn't act or is anything close to the original versions. Now, you might say that's ironic coming from the guy that defends DmC Devil May Cry, but we'll get to that. Sam Fisher in Blacklist is everything that he wasn't in previous games. It made sense for Conviction's story to be like that, because Sam Fisher was still, like I said, making quirky one-liners, and it was more serious and related to him because it involved his daughter. But when we get to this Sam Fisher in Blacklist, he's completely different. He's not even close to being similar to the old Sam Fisher. And another thing that Blacklist took inspiration of was armor in co-op. So funny enough, in Conviction, there were two main things that got carried over into Splinter Cell Blacklist. That would be the co-op and the armor. So in Splinter Cell Conviction, you could like level up and do other stuff with your armor. In the later game, or when you had to do certain missions, basically, you could choose how much ammo you wanted, how much armor that you wanted, how much, just in general, you could customize. It wasn't very in-depth, and it didn't really need to be. And then, on the other side, you have the co-op. How they work together over time and becoming close buddies, even though at the very end they have to, I don't want to spoil it, but the co-op for Splinter Cell Conviction is very good. But these are two things that got completely, and I mean completely, got put into Blacklist, if not expanded upon. So you got the co-op missions with Briggs, but it has been way bigger than before. You know, you can do this with people. In fact, you can even bring them into certain side missions. Co-op is a huge part of Splinter Cell Blacklist. And then, on top of that, the armor system got completely revamped. It went from, oh yeah, just do a little bit of that, to here's your individual levels on your stealth, here's how much armor that you have, here's how much ammo you can carry, this is how fast you can move. Like, what? So what I'm trying to say is that Splinter Cell Conviction and Splinter Cell Blacklist are pretty similar games. In fact, I'd say that's the problem with Blacklist. Blacklist is having a bit of an identity crisis if it wants to be Splinter Cell Conviction or OG Splinter Cell games. And it feels like it's trying to appease both parties, but not pulling it off quite yet. But Conviction and Blacklist are very much similar games, even though they execute certain things differently, which leads to the quality of the games being different as well. So, did he go back to basics? No. But anyway, the same guy that directed Conviction and directed Blacklist is also the same guy that directed Gotham Knights. So make of that what you will. Now we get to the good stuff. DmC Devil May Cry. So one of the main points that he makes of DmC Devil May Cry being different from the OG DmC games is that Dante is different. Oh my god, guys, we don't want to scare the OG DmC fans. You got to be very careful, okay? If you say character arc, they're gonna freak out, okay? Well, I may be saying this as a joke, but it's very true. The Dante in DmC Devil May Cry was very much had an arc. DmC 3 Dante even had an arc, but pretty much no other DmC game have we gotten an arc for Dante. Dante doesn't get much of an arc in 1. 2, he's just existing. 3 is where he actually gets an arc. 4 is where he just hangs around and does wahoo stuff. 5, it's debatable at best. Nothing really of note happens to him. But DMC Devil May Cry's Dante is different because it takes the elements of DMC 3 that worked, which was his character art, and put it in the best way possible for its game. And look, I'm going to say it. I know this is going to hurt a lot of people, but DMC Devil May Cry Dante always was a good character. I know people may say that, oh no, he says fuck you and he swears. And I'm sitting here like, wait, what does that have to do with the character? You see, when I point out things like Sam Fisher being character assassinated, is because the character makes choices that are exactly opposite of what Sam Fisher would do, right? He is totally not even close. Dante, sure, maybe a drier version, maybe a less extreme version, and maybe curses a bit more, but certainly he's still the same Dante and Dante energy. But I can't say that for like DMC 2 Dante, for example. DMC Devil May Cry Dante is mostly just like DMC 3 Dante. Their arcs are pretty similar and the same character writing is still there. But the difference is that people don't see him ride missiles and go wahoo wacky, and then people go, oh no, he's not a good character, man. Okay, Doven? Is that the, Doven? Is that how you say the word? Metal pipe sound? I've been everywhere when it comes to DMC Devil May Cry's opinions on Dante. And I've heard a lot of stuff. I've heard that he's a bad character, that he's not like old Dante, but I dive deeper and deeper, and they don't give me real points. Like, one of the main videos from Hero is called Why DMC Devil May Cry's Dante is a Bad Character, right? And he might be going, whoa, okay, so he's gonna bring in the facts. But 90% of them was because he wasn't likable. In fact, 90% of the arguments that are widely against Dante is that he's not likable. Or they clip scenes out of context and say, oh yeah, you know, Dante's a bad character because he was going through an arc, and in that early stage of an arc, he does something abhorrent. Even though later on in the story, he completely backtracks on that and goes through a proper arc. But hey now, you know, that's crazy. So like I said, DMC Devil May Cry Dante was always a good character. He always was. It was just a myth, a legend that we made up in the sky, right? Because we poisoned the air, all right? And just the next quote he says is, this Dante was seen as a replacement. Okay, but why does that make a difference? Even if this Dante was trying to replace the other Dante, he still got the same elements of Dante. He still is Dante to a degree. Is he the exact same? Of course not. But then again, there has been 4 games of Dante, and each one of them are practically different. You can say he's a replacement back in 2013, but now it's 10 years later, my guy, and he hasn't replaced anybody because DMC Dante is back. So he's not a replacement. That argument just flat out doesn't work. So what was the point of making it in the first place? It was something that made sense at the time, but now has 0 weight. So why are we making this point? Because when it comes to DMC 5, Splinter Cell Blacklist and DMC 5 actually have a lot in common in terms of how they want to. They both want to emulate the things of the past. They both want to honorate the soft reboot / reboot. They both want to put 2 different separate ideas into one, even if the ideas end up clashing. The popular opinion would say, oh yeah, DMC 5 has the best combat in the series, blah blah blah. When you talk to the pros, the people that actually play the game the most, they will list off a number of issues with the game. Even though they may say the game is good, there is a multiple of issues. Like, here's one, and this one's directly from the reboot. In DMC Devil May Cry, there's no such thing as inertia. It just doesn't exist. It's not there. It was a fairy tale. In DMC 5, however, they took that same form of no inertia and put it into DMC 5. Now the only way to actually add inertia back into the game is with mods. And then there's other things, like the lack of reversals. Why are reversals gone? I don't know, man. Don't ask me. And then there's certain button prompts that even take after DMC Devil May Cry with the lack of lock-on. Mostly I'm talking about Nero's breakers. And let me say again, a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know this, don't scare them, but the original guy that was behind DMC 3 and 4, and in particular is seen as the catalyst of the series when it comes to 5, also had a great bit of involvement with DMC Devil May Cry. He had a lot of say in terms of the character design, the story, and even its gameplay. Insuno was definitely still attached. So to say it's like, it's just Ninja Theory's fault and Capcom really did, it's just not true. Now, one of the quotes that he says is, if the players see what they are chasing is trend chasing, then they essentially don't like it. I don't have the full quote because I'm not very good. But the point is that, yes, they have been chasing trends for DMC. Like, V, he's supposed to be a character that people can pick up and play for newcomers that don't understand the complexity of Nero or Dante. And the same thing could be said about 4 Nero, because he was supposed to be an entrance for people that don't want to play as Dante. And when it comes to Conviction and DMC Devil May Cry, they have heard feedback and then drastically changes the game for that. Like, let me show an example, right? DMC Devil May Cry's original reboot show off and teaser was very different from the Dante that we actually got in the main game. The same thing could be said for Splinter Cell Conviction. When it was first thought up, it was a brawler, believe it or not. That was like an action game, kind of. It was like you can pick up chair and throw things, and then later on it then changed into what we know. Both of these are not necessarily times where they chase trends. It's because they were trying different things, and they heard feedback and they went to alter it to make it more like the original games that they were based off of. So saying that they're chasing trends in this case, I don't see it, but I do generally get the idea of what he's trying to say here. So I know what he means. Okay. Again, a good video. I just wanted to add my 2 cents, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Generally, the thing that it comes across is that it's good to be, you know, a good, different game. And in some ways, it ends up revitalizing the series and making it good for newcomers. And I do agree with that. But here's the problem with this whole quote. Just like I said in my ultimate defense of DMC Devil May Cry, a good game is a good game, period. I don't care what you try and turn around and say, well, you know, it's not a good DMC game. You know, it's not a good Splinter Cell. Who cares, right? Do you want things to be like the original? Sure, that's fine. But at the same time, if you give me a good game, it's a good game. I feel like the change need to happen if there's something bad. That's the real problem. And I think the only exception to this is, of course, the remake. So, alright. That was kind of a longer rant than I needed to be. The recording says 30 minutes. It's probably not going to be that long in the end of the video, but wow, this was longer than I thought it would take. But yeah, it's a good video. Go check it out. Again, it's called A Good Game, but a Bad Redacted Game. Very good video. I clicked on it. Good stuff. So yeah, I just want to say check out my Redfall video. I will be working on that discussion with Android Axel. I promise to get it out next upload or the upload after that. I promise. I pretty promise. Okay, guys. So yeah. So I haven't really planned an outro. So this has been Splinter 333, and you will miss me. See you later. Peace.